Thank you so much for that, Nicole. And taking a look at our weather conditions, it's going to get warmer into next week, I promise. Yes, I do promise. Let's turn it over to Mike in Guelph and see what it's like outside right now. Yes, that's right. It is looking really good into next week with high pressure building in, and it's going to last for an extended period of time. So let's take a look at our short-term forecast. In terms of where we're going to go with regard to the wind, well, there really isn't much wind to speak of because the conditions are so stable. It's possible that, well, certainly Ottawa and Kingston tomorrow may see some showers. There will be a lot of cloud cover today as well, and it'll be raining in Montreal. So if your travel plans take you there in business, then be prepared for that. Otherwise, it's all dry, and then we have our rain showers across northern Ontario. It's all in coverage on that. Other than that, it's through the weekend, some rain that's moving into the southeast of the province. The GTA is not really seeing much, but look at this. Look at these values of 16, 17 degrees by next Tuesday. It is Wednesday, and that means another episode of Storm Hunters, this time Nature's Fury. Want to give you a sneak peek, and then we'll come back and talk about your weather conditions. Have a look. Nature's Fury, Storm Hunters, tonight on the Weather Network exclusively. We'll be live streaming as well, and that's at 7 and 10 p.m., so don't miss it. Let's turn it over to our weather. See some not much wind at all. Variable. You can see that the arrows are kind of all over the place. But it's just because it's so calm and high pressure is building in. That's really the trend for us heading into the weekend. The only exception, I just want to mention that there's increased cloud cover today in Ottawa and Kingston. And then there will be some rainfall in Montreal today and tomorrow, too. So that's where the unsettled weather is. So if you're traveling there for business, then you just need to be mindful of packing for that. But it's all really the result of the backside of the nor'easter that's making its way through the Atlantic provinces. We're not feeling the effects of that, but there may be some passing showers here to our north. What we want to note here is that the temperatures are rising very significantly to 17 by Tuesday, and there's some indication that we could even be reaching 20 degrees in the southwest of the province next week. Thank you, Chris, but still I get queasy when I see those videos, and maybe you do too. Let's take a look at our weather conditions. We need to check in first, though, with Mike in Guelph and see what it's like outside. Thank you, Mike. Well, yeah, we're really in a transition today from the low pressure system that we dealt with early in the week. 12 degrees is the high in Toronto today. And there may be, and we talked about Guelph being nice and clear and sunny, same for Toronto, but Ottawa, Kingston, Montreal, actually Montreal getting rainfall today, but lots of cloud cover in this region. So it's all the impact, really the backside of the nor'easter that's affecting Atlantic Canada and making its way there. You can see it on the back end here. But we're really not feeling the effects of that in the GTA. Maybe some passing showers north of the city later this weekend, but when we look at our 7-day forecast, we hardly see any signs of it. Saturday, here's some isolated showers only, but notice the temperatures do rise to 17 on Tuesday. So some warmth on the way, big dome of high pressure for us, an extended period of sunshine. Thank you very much, Chris, for that list. And we are taking a look, of course, at our weather conditions today. And we have high pressure that's building in, so calm, stable weather, not only for just a couple of days, but for really an extended period of time. Let's take a look at Guelph away. Having said that, it's not quite, at least the weather is not quite gone from Ottawa and Montreal just yet, although now one could argue that it's not the low that we had, it's more so the impact of the nor'easter that is kind of circling back. Ottawa cloudy today, and Kingston too, some showers in Montreal. So if for those on business, then you need to be prepared for some wet weather heading in that direction. You can see it more broadly here as the low pressure system brings back that precipitation to the southern Quebec as well as southeastern Ontario. For us, on the other hand, we may see some passing showers on Saturday, only in the form of scattered precipitation, which we're showing on the icon here. Temperature high of 14, but notice what happens next week. We're going as high as 17 here for Toronto. There is some indication that in the southwest of the province, like Chatham, Windsor, might even reach 20 degrees next week. So that would be pretty great for late October. In terms of Hamilton, some bright skies for Friday with a temperature high of 14 degrees. Some special programming notes for you for the month of October. On Sundays, it's Angry Planet, and on Wednesdays, it is Storm Hunters. And this episode is about Nature's Fury. It's airing tonight on the Weather Network exclusively at 7 and 10 p.m. Here's a sneak peek. Don't miss Storm Hunters tonight on the Weather Network. Let's turn it over to our weather today in terms of the Sky conditions going to look a lot like this. Blue skies with high pressure. Let's turn it over to Mike in Guelph and see what it's like outside. Well, Mike, we've had those showers, that light rain that has come through as of late. Well, all of that is moving away from us and merging with the nor'easter in Atlantic Canada, with the exception of Ottawa, Montreal, and maybe even down toward Kingston being the dividing line of the cloud versus the sun. We are definitely going to be seeing some rain in Montreal, form of showers likely in the next couple of days. So if you're traveling there, be aware of that. For the GTA, it's a dry forecast. The impact of the nor'easter could result in some scattered showers for Toronto, but notice the warming temperatures by next week. Well, all is well with regard to air travel at Pearson and at Toronto Island because we have high pressure in place, so not expecting to see any weather delays. Thank you for that list, though, Chris. That's great stuff. And let's check in. We will still see a fair amount of cloud cover in southeastern Ontario and southern Quebec, rainfall and showers in Montreal due to it's really the backside, if you will, of the nor'easter that's giving so much weather to Atlantic Canada today and especially tomorrow. High pressure in place back into northern Ontario, some showers for eastern Superior Shores. And now looking ahead, this is the Friday snapshot. This is a fairly slow moving storm system across the east, wind, rain. And then for us, another low pressure system comes down. That will result in some scattered showers we expect on Saturday. That's the big story into next week, reaching 17. Sheryl Plouffe and Chrissy Van with you, and we're going to get into your forecast conditions. But first, we just want to give our thoughts and prayers to the city of Ottawa as we're dealing with the attacks today on our nation's capital. And on behalf of the Weather Network, we want you to know that we're thinking of you. Let's get into your forecast. 80,000 customers were without power, trees down, very strong winds. In Vancouver, the winds were about 75 km, but it got worse than that.
Yes, look at this. An estimate point, 180 km/h wind gusts. That's the equivalent of a low-end Category 3 hurricane.
And we're going to see a lot more rain for the BC coast and interior. It's going to continue to rain through Thursday, and we could exceed 80 more millimeters of rain, so it's not quite over yet.
Yes, the endless storm parade, you can see that 50 to 80 millimeter mark, but everyone is really getting a fair dousing. Look at this through Tofino, 20 to 50 millimeters by Thursday, and that won't be the end of the storm parade, unfortunately.
Well, it's interesting, as we get into the early part of next week, the remnants of Hurricane Anna will make their way into the BC coast, so definitely looking at a very moisture-laden pattern that we're dealing with. Now, that's the one coast. Let's go to the other coast.
As well on the southern shores of Nova Scotia, 100 plus millimeters of rain.
Now, of course, it's Wednesday. Every Wednesday in October, we have the latest installment of Storm Hunters. Here's a sneak peek of what you'll see tonight on the Weather Network. And that was Mike earlier today. In terms of where we are this afternoon, we're pretty much at seasonal values. I want to show you the 7-day forecast. Interesting things happening here for Toronto. Look at the warmth. Your Long Ranger now on the Weather Network. I'm Sheryl Plouffe, and before we get into the forecast conditions, just want to say that on behalf of the Weather Network, our thoughts and prayers are with the nation's capital right now as we go through a very dark hour in Canadian history. Let's take a look at our weather forecast and what we can expect. This is a look ahead for Western Canada starting from Friday late and into Saturday. So when I set this in motion, you'll see that Friday is actually a bit of a break. Isolated showers will continue, but the big time rains, see how there's a next round coming in? Friday is kind of like a break, and then we get into the next one, and early next week there's yet another round of weather that's on the way. This is what's called a spaghetti plot. So essentially what these are, all of these lines represent individual computer models. First point near the Hawaiian Islands on the bottom of the map. But what we're seeing is that there's a trend heading toward the BC coast and the Pacific Northwest, and that most are in agreement that it's going to be impacting 168 hours out, which is 7 days out. So next week, the remnants of Hurricane Anna making their way into the BC coast. What we're looking at in terms of a weather pattern early next week is that it's going to be cooler, so it's kind of role reversing. We're going to have cooler air across the prairies and portions of BC, and it'll be warmer across Ontario. It's a bit of a flip-flop, and to end on this pattern by late next week. Now we're getting into Halloween, and it's going to be cool across the coasts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Chrissy Van here with Sheryl Plouffe, and we're going to be covering the rain on East and West Coast coming up. But first, we just want to send our heartfelt thoughts and prayers here at the Weather Network. We are thinking of all of you in Ottawa today, given the current situation. Yes, the winds were unbelievable. Luckily, those have subsided, though, so the worst part of that story is over. But the rain continues. I mean, in through the lower mainland, still seeing upwards of 80+ millimeters over the next couple of days.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting when we look at our long-range forecast, the remnants of Hurricane Anna start to play into your forecast too. I know you've seen that on your locals, right? The rain that's coming in on the weekend. Well, some of that will be the remnants of the hurricane that's still near
the nor'easter that's going to be impacting things Wednesday through Friday.
Our team has just landed. They're getting themselves situated. They're going to have live storm coverage of this nor'easter in Atlantic Canada. The winds will be strong. We'll be getting lots of rain, of course, as well. In fact, southern New Brunswick and Nova Scotia could see well in excess of 80+ millimeters of rain. Storm hunters, here's a sneak peek of tonight's episode. We sure do, Mike, because the temperatures are increasing significantly into next week. The daytime highs yesterday across the region, well, Mount Forest was 8, but we reached almost 11 degrees at Pearson. Now, in terms of where we go this afternoon, we're going to still be sitting in the low teens, but this is the beginning of a spell of warmer weather that's headed our way because we have high pressure in place. With the exception of Saturday, we may see a few little scattered showers coming through, but it would be very short-lived. The low-pressure system that we've been dealing with the last couple of days with the showers and rain have moved away from us and have joined forces, in fact, energy-wise at least, and with this low-pressure system, which is a nor'easter across Atlantic Canada. We have our teams mobilized. They've landed now in Nova Scotia and ready to cover that storm as it moves up. We're going to continue to see the impact of wind and rain. It's been so stormy in Atlantic Canada as of late. But for us, we're dealing with actually some fair weather and high pressure in place. Just to mention for our friends in Ottawa that we here at the Weather Network want to send our thoughts and prayers to our nation's capital as we deal with a very dark moment in Canadian history, clearly with the events that have transpired today. And in Ottawa tomorrow, we will have some showers moving through. Saturday, next week, we've got values here in the teens throughout, but look at that, 17. There may even be some areas in southwestern Ontario next week that reach into the 20-degree mark.